Hello and welcome to Europa Universalis 4, and welcome to Beginning Anew. This will be an ongoing series where I analyze countries and discuss some tactics and strategies that you can use to become a world power and dominate the international stage. I'm always happy to receive more requests as to which country I should review next, but for now, let us begin anew. His nation? Muscovy. Muscovy, the Muscovites, we have the country that formed Russia. Muscovy is Eastern Tech. Historically they become westernized. However, they start as a kingdom, an Orthodox kingdom, with Grand Knyaz Vasily II Temeny. I have no clue what this means, but I approve of it. Anyhow, we start with a 3-1-2 with our heir our heir is 345. Age 4, so we hope he grows up quickly, with our ideas being national manpower, oh yes, the human wave, and infantry cost minus 20%. Did I mention the human wave? Anyhow, we continue. Sutprinik, late 15th century. We have a regularizing ruling code, gives us core creation cost minus 15%. Very good for expansion, I may say. Found the Streltsovy. It is an army that is defending our realm with a land force limit modifier of 50%. Oprichinada, Aproshinina, I don't know how to pronounce these things, so please don't murder me. And it allows us to get manpower recovery speed plus 10% and culture conversion cost minus 20%. Definitely something interesting if you're going into the Tatars. Later on we have abolished the Menshenivisto. Anyhow, it gives a production efficiency plus 10%. Siberian frontier, oh yes. Which allows us to colonize Siberia very, very nicely. With colonist plus 1, and of course adjacent to territory is automatically discovered when a colony is built, which allows you to colonize without actually having colonial ideas. A table of ranks abolishment of a Menshevistro was the first move, and it allows us to give more yearly army attrition, which is 0.5 a year. Technology cost minus 10%, which essentially almost negates your Eastern Tech. And of course, if you westernize, this could be very, very helpful. And now our ambitions is national manpower modifier plus 50%, which I think we will definitely need with our human wave. Of course, that puts us totally to a 75% modifier with defensive ideas, or quantity that could get even higher. But we have 3 vassals at the beginning. We have Yaroslav, Pskov, and Perm, with Novgorod, Lithuania, Kazan, Golden Horde, and Ryazan being our biggest neighbors. Or our only neighbors, with the exception of our vassals. Of course, Trevier is independent, but Trevier is not exactly that important. History. Continuing on, we have the history of Muscovy, or should I say, Mother Russia. I cannot do a Russian accent, however, let us watch the history unfold. Muscovy eats Novgorod in a single war historically, which was of course the war for Novgorod. Conquest of Novgorod. Did I mention that again? Anyhow, Novgorod is conquered, and next we form Russia in 1505, perhaps a bit earlier. I can't remember the dates myself, but 1503 is historically when it happened. Of course, this was just after a large war with Lithuania and Poland, where we tried to take back our cores, which we actually succeed in. No, we do not. Instead, we take other land just as well. Russia continues expanding through its entire history, with only a few pressbacks, and later taking out the Tatars in its south, Crimea, Golden Horde, later on Siberia, and all others. Siberia gets annexed. Russia pushes further east, of course, Siberia. And soon we will have a larger nation that we would even be able to control. Russia growing, Commonwealth fighting back, Commonwealth succeeding in a fight, However, this only lasts a short while, with Russia continuing its expansion into Eastern Asia. Commonwealth has their big revolts. Russia still expands. Now Russia has taken most of Alaska. Oops, what am I saying? Siberia. Alaska actually comes later on in history. As we move west once more, we can watch as Russia takes Crimea soon, and the Commonwealth also. Sweden being pushed out of the Baltic, Russia truly expanding now into the west. Once we get to it. I get ahead of myself a lot in these things, don't I? Anyhow, continuing on, we can watch as Russia, here we go, starts eating at the Commonwealth and Crimea. With Crimea shrinking, the Commonwealth shrinking, and Russia growing. Did I mention we started off as Muscovy? Of course, Russia has the same ideas as Muscovy, with the border between Prussia and Austria finally being formed. Russia already in Alaska, Aliska, as they pronounce it, hopefully, I don't know. But that is the history of Russia. Expansion, expansion, and more expansion. With an end total of 1,600 development, France 1,200, Spain 500. Russia is definitely going somewhere. Anyhow, let's move on into the tactics. Muscovy starts with a quite substantial army actually, with a force limit of 29, almost 30,000 troops. Of course, its vassals helping it out with that, putting it up to 34, 36, and 39. 39,000 troops definitely helps when you're trying to fight the Novgorodians, who have a quite smaller army at max 20,000 troops, I think. Anyhow, we have forts around our entire nation. Muskova is capital fort and a built fort, Galich and Nizhny Novgorod. One of these can be deleted early on. This one is usually the best because this one controls more land. However, it's completely up to you, and sometimes you can even leave them in. You will start off usually with Conquer Novgorod, which will give you claims on, guess that, all of Novgorod. So that is usually the best choice for the beginning of the game. Of course, it will require multiple wars. 185% war score is not easy to come by, especially when it caps out at 100. Instead, it might be possible for you to conquer and or vassalize Tver, or even better, feed Tver to Yaroslav, who will then eat parts of Novgorod with you being able to take other parts, making the war with Novgorod a lot quicker and a lot easier, since you'll be able to feed your vassals. Perhaps Pskov could take these 3 provinces, Yaroslav will take these 4, and Muscovy can take the rest, which are a lot cheaper to core. It will take a bit longer to integrate your vassals, however at this point vassals are better than actual land. Ryazan is independent, which means that is also somewhere to attack. Golden Horde will usually attack them, or Ryazan will attack Golden Horde if they're feeling ballsy. Definitely have ideas about expanding south. The hordes are usually very powerful, but if you play your cards right and lure them into forested areas, it is a lot easier to fight them. Never ever fight hordes in the steppes, especially not early game when they out-tech you, at least in terms of military. Continuing on, we have expansion paths. Expansion paths, Siberia, obviously. You'll have to integrate Perm for that, perhaps feed Perm some of Kazan. You will find out that vassal feeding is most definitely useful as Muscovy, since you do start with so many. Lithuania is a choice to expand into, however it is sometimes the bad choice, especially if Poland is backing them up, and any allies Poland might bring in. However, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, if Sweden decides to do an independence war, which they most likely will, and you have eaten Novgorod, Sweden is definitely land that might be interesting to take. Otherwise, Baltic Sea is often better to control than Novgorod, since Novgorod has a pesky emptying one into the White Sea and the Baltic is usually easier to control depending on what you're doing. Baltic, if you decide to expand into it, just take these provinces here and you'll be fine. You don't need to expand into the HRE usually. If you want to, I am not stopping you. Lithuania, as historically sometimes it's best to wait until they have large revolts. And Lithuanian order also, interesting to note, they are vassalizable at 93% war score, something better used as the Teutonic order in a run to create Prussia. However, not any other country can do the same. Riga is of course allied with the Hansa or Lübeck, which will make it a bit harder to attack. However, Lübeck is no longer as strong as it once was, and so you might have better chances. Of course, with Mare Nostrarum, that will be a trade federation, which means you'll have to fight a lot more. So if you're going for any kind of achievement, now would be the time. Anyhow, as I said before, tactics for Muscovy is expand, expand, expand. Ideas for Muscovy are a bit different. Administrative ideas always good. Co-creation costs minus 25%. And of course, since we have our co-creation cost minus 15%, that 25% actually becomes a 40. So you're almost having to pay half price for land. So this is definitely something to go for. Other ideas, religious, you have a lot of Sunni land to the south, and most other nations in Europe are Catholic, which you can definitely attack with Deus Vult. Diplomatic influence would be good, especially if you're doing vassal feeding. Otherwise, trade perhaps, and if you decide that exploration is for you and you can rush through Siberia and perhaps colonize from the east, you can always do that. However, diplomatic is definitely a secondary. Military ideas, well, we know that the human wave works. However, infantry compatibility would definitely be useful, so quality is something to go for. However, if you want to go full on Mother Russia, quantity will be your thing. National manpower modifier plus 50% here, including your 25 for traditions, puts it at 75%. And of course your end game plus 50%. We are using a lot more manpower than we should actually have, but what do we care? Westernizing is definitely something you want to go for. Your technology costs minus 10%. As I mentioned before, Westernization could be difficult. However, as Eastern, the cost for it is usually a lot less. And if you have a large enough nation, you should be fine. But that was the tactics from Muscovy for now. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll move on to achievements. Sadly, Muscovy only has one achievement, which is Mother Russia, which means you have to form Russia as a Russian nation. This is usually more of an achievement for nations such as Novgorod and Perm, because Muscovy is primed and ready to form Russia at any time. But that is that for Muscovy. As for other nations that you might have interest in playing, Perm has a separate achievement, Novgorod has a separate achievement, and I'm quite sure that the Baltics could also crusade into Russia, but Muscovy itself has relatively few. With relatively few, of course, I mean one. What Muscovy would be useful for is a decent reserve where you have 1 million manpower, and as we know, manpower is definitely something we can have at 125% of it. But that is it for now. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Definitely mention nations you would want me to review and or have a look at. And if you have any of our games or other Paradox titles perhaps, I am slightly running low on those. We're definitely waiting on Stellaris and the new EU4 update, Mare Nostrarum. But that is it for now. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.